So I guess our main speaker tonight is Don P.
My name is Don, and I am an alcoholic. And I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, in good standing tonight. My home group is the Denver Thursday night group. We meet in Denver, Colorado every Thursday night at 8 o'clock. And if you ever get there, please come visit with us. It's a very basic little AA group. I'm also very active in a Big Book workshop that meets on Tuesday morning at 6 o'clock in the morning. We don't have much dead weight in that group. But the joy of my life are the people that come by my house on a regular basis, and we sit down, read the Big Book, and share ourselves with each other. And I get to watch people who are stark raving mad get stark raving sober and change their lives. And that's the joy of my life. My kids love having you drop by. Their real dad, my stepdaughter's real dad, is a Denver vice detective. And I got sober in my third penitentiary. So there's some contrast between us. And my kids have learned over the years that the folks that come sit on our couch are the very folks that their dad's looking for. And they love you. I want to thank you for allowing me to be here, but I particularly want to thank you for being here. I have been walking hand in hand with the Spirit of God for 25 years now, and that means every day of my life since then, the extraordinary has occurred. And if I don't get to tell somebody about that regularly, I'll probably get mean and ugly again. I know I won't feel good. Now, one of the stories I'd like to share with you has to do with this young lady right down here. I was in Kanab, Utah a few years ago, just giving one of these little pitches. And down front at one of the tables, there was one of the bikers from the Salt Lake City 5th Chapter group in his leathers. And there was a young man across the table from him, very young, couldn't have been 17 or 18. And the biker was signing to the other young man, and I was touched. After the talk, I went down and visited with him. They didn't know each other. The young deaf fella was 3 days sober, had come to that meeting knowing full well he wouldn't hear anything, but he knew that sobriety was here, and so he came. The biker said he hadn't signed for 20 years, but somehow he picked up on that, and it all came back to him. So I would like to acknowledge her. She's really carrying the message. I drank alcoholically from my first drink, and I didn't know I was alcoholic when you found me. I've never had any control of the amount of alcohol I drank. I still think that's a silly idea. Why would you want to do that? Alcohol changed me. See, I believe this whole deal is about change. I went to alcohol desperately needing a change. I was stupid, and I was short, and I was ugly, and weird. I'm still weird, but now I'm pretty. We got a guy from Lowry Air Force Base to buy us a bottle of bonded bourbon, and went out east to Denver to drink it, because that's what you did where I grew up. Around 15 or 16, the rite of passage was get a bottle of whiskey from an airman and go get drunk, because they said that was fun. And I was into fun. I didn't have much, but I was ready. And that night, I had what is described in the Big Book as something very nearly a spiritual experience. Ideas and conceptions that once rule of the lives of these men are suddenly cast to one side and a whole new set of ideas begins to dominate them. And that's what happened to me that night. A few drinks of bonded bourbon, and the normal things happened. I got taller and smarter and all that stuff. But what I truly remember about that night is for the first time in my entire life, I had some plans. Up until that night, I was a reactor to life. It happened and I bounced off of it. And I had learned by then that whoever I was whoever you said I was. I avoided crowds because I get really confused when you tell me one thing and you tell me another. But that night I was me. It was all right for me to be me and all right for you to be you. And I had some plans. There was a kid in my class that hadn't been treating me well at all, and I was going to meet him back at the drive-in and whip him. And I could have done it. And there was a little girl in my class that hadn't been treating me at all. And we were going to have a visit. And I really believe I could have visited with her that night. I didn't know it then, but it's in my nature that if one works, you take 10. And by the time I got back to the drive-in, of course, what these people saw instead of what I had in mind was my partners carrying me around by the elbows while I puked in the driveway. I have just described my drinking to you. Okay. But I have a keen alcoholic mind, and I quickly determined what caused that kind of embarrassing situation. It was bonded bourbon. To this day, I don't recall ever drinking bonded bourbon again. I think if it's the only thing I had, I would have. But I quickly learned what wouldn't make me do that quite so soon. When I began to read the book Alcoholics Anonymous, I found me in there. I drank for the effect produced by alcohol. If we were going to fight, which you do when you're 16 on East Colfax in Denver, I drank vodka, because with vodka I get mean. If we were going to go to a party and there was a chance there'd be some girls there, I drank dark Bacardi rum, because that turns me into a lover. Oh yeah. I get sensitive and warm and smooth and drunk. Early on, I ran into that terrible thing that happens to alcoholics, and there would be times I couldn't feel anything. But I could drink Coors beer and listen to Jim Reeves singing Four Walls, and I could just cry like a baby. It was wonderful. And I was in my first federal penitentiary when I was 19 years old because of alcohol, not because I'm a big-time gangster. I'm not. I'm a drunk. And when I drink alcohol, I get lost and I can't find my way home. And when you're in the Navy, that's a felony. I missed a ship movement by 23 days one time. And I was baffled by that for years. Baffled is my favorite word. That's where you've just done everything you thought you heard them say you're supposed to do, so it'll work. And it didn't work. And I was baffled because I loved the Navy. I loved everything about it. But I just couldn't get back to that ship on time. I took a drink in Long Beach, California, and 22 days later I was in Pershing Square, mooching drinks, and couldn't even consider going back to that ship. On day 23, my madness was over, for whatever the reason, and I turned myself in and went back like a regular person and faced the consequences. And I didn't know until you told me specifically that that was alcoholism. I love Alcoholics Anonymous so much because I didn't come looking for you, you found me. And then when you found me, you told me precisely what was wrong with me and precisely what I could and couldn't do about that. We ritualize things these days to my chagrin. We tend to ritualize the promises. Well, the promises are all through the book Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm here to talk to Joe tonight. Have you met Joe? God, fresh and new. I love it. I saw him say, I don't want to embarrass you. Yeah. But I looked for Joe. He sat there and he was going like that with both feet. And he's sucking on a sucker. 4 days sober. I love it. I'm glad you're here. Take good care of him. But I didn't come to you. You came to me by the grace of God. Christmas night of 1967, as a result of finally running out of lies, I took a 2-month supply of speed and shot it up my arm and drank everything in the house and died because I couldn't stand being me one more second. Just couldn't. I was living in a hovel with my 2 little boys. There's only 1 or 2 people left on the planet that had talked to me. And I ran out of lies. And that was the process of surrender for me. Not the truth. The truth didn't get me here. Running out of lies did. I only had a few left. I would have told you at that time that everything was okay and my family was intact, so we were okay. And I was a good father. The truth was the boys and I lived together in the same house. My family was not intact. I weighed 133 pounds. I was on federal parole for a mistake I made in 1966. And we were on ADC because I couldn't work. And we lived beneath an old lady who raised cats, and her place was cleaner than mine. I come from a functional home. If there's anybody I need to apologize for that for, I will, but my parents are still alive. They still live in the same house. They still talk to each other. They still even like each other after all these years. In my home, we had problems, but my family always faced up to their problems. There wasn't anything they could do about me. My brother is a professor of music at the University of Colorado, and probably the foremost synthesizer musician in the United States. He was writing music for Stan Kenton when he was 19. My sister retired from IBM a while back, one of their top executives. She made great babies and great money. Her babies make great babies. They have been unable to find decent husbands to go with them. But in my family, the attitude is when one of those comes along, isn't that nice? Another little Pritz baby, let's raise it. And that's where I come from. And I know I broke those people's hearts time and time again. I think the greatest harm I did to my family was that I kept getting up. They'd get new hope, and then I'd dash those hopes again, and then I'd get up. Because I'm a sprinter in the game of life. After I've been knocked to my knees, I get up, and I'm really good off the line. I find out what you want me to be, and I be that. And I find out what you want me to do, and I do that. And I'm really a quick study. But don't turn your head. I get distracted real easy. All I did that week was surrender. I realized we lived in a hovel. My family wasn't right. We didn't have a Christmas tree. None of the things that make life okay were happening in my house. I will be forever grateful for the thing that killed me. On Christmas Day, we went down to my folks' house to spend the day with Grandma and Grandpa. And my dad met us at the door and he said, "Don, I'm sorry, but your mother said I can't let you in here anymore. She can't stand watching you die." And my lie had been, for a long time, just leave me the hell alone. I'm not hurting anybody but me. And that day I could see the lie. I could see what I'd done to my kids and my folks and my friends and everybody. And then Dad dashed my last lie because he snuck us in anyway. They live in a big house in East Denver and he snuck us in. And I had been saying, nobody cares, nobody loves us. And he made a lie out of that. And I went home and couldn't stand it anymore and killed myself. And when I woke up the next morning, I really didn't feel good. The police were at the door. I'd set myself up to be arrested. The charge that I set myself up for, they didn't find for 2 days. They came to take me away on 9 charges. The first one called for 3 years to life in the penitentiary. And I promised the DA that he'd bring the rest of them one at a time if I beat that one. Now that's really high drama. And it just happens to be the path I went. I believe everyone here created their own prison in their mind. I just lived long enough to make mine real, that's all. When I came to trial 5 months later, the district attorney said, we've been talking to the federal people, and they say that you're sick. And I agreed. He said, we've talked it over. If you'll plead guilty to this little reduced charge, we'll suspend your sentence and give you to the federal people, and they said they'll take you down to Fort Worth, Texas, to that hospital where they can fix you. Because at that time I was finally certified as a sociopath type 2, a psychopath, and a manic depressive drug addict. What I knew was that I was really tired. I pled guilty. Federal hospital beats the hell out of penitentiary, come on. For a number of reasons. They kept their bargain. They gave me a 1.5 to 3 year sentence, suspended it, and turned me back to the federal people who'd already agreed to take me. And 5 days later, I was in the Colorado State Penitentiary because the federal parole officer changed his mind at the last minute. He said, there's nothing we can do for this one anyway, just lock him up. So we didn't hurt anybody else. And I believe that was an act of God. Had I gone to the hospital, I'd have been on the street in 6 months. They'd have told me what was wrong with me. They would have told me how long it would take to fix that. They would have told me the symptoms I'd have to show them to convince them I was getting better. That's my best game. I was taken to you because in our 3rd week in the fish tank, you showed up in the form of 3 guys in green clothes with numbers on their chests. Now, I got to tell you, convicts in their natural habitat in their own clothes are a little intimidating. Smiling convicts are outright frightening. And they were smiling. And we came down and listened to them, and this guy got up and he said, my name's Doc, and I'm an alcoholic, and that means that I'm powerless over alcohol and drugs and guards and all of the other circumstances of my life. And my life has become unmanageable. And if any of you smart bastards think you can still manage your lives, look at the reward the state just gave you for the nifty job you've been doing. And the miracle happened. I heard him. I don't think that alcoholics necessarily don't think well. Alcoholics can't hear and they don't know how to read. That's their biggest problem. Okay? But I heard him. They gave me the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's this simple, Joe. If you are an alcoholic, you don't ever have to drink alcohol again, ever. That's it. The rest of it's fun and games and a lot of hard work. If you believe what I just told you, I've screwed up your drinking forever. Because if you ever drink again, you'll remember that, and it's really uncomfortable. I was hand-carried through the step process out of the big book, the recovery process, in 5 weekends. In order to go to the main group, we had to go through this 12-step study school. And it was there that they first introduced me to sponsorship. I'm a believer in sponsorship. And I met kind, gentle sponsorship right off the bat. This smiling monkey with a number on his chest said, you new guys for the next 5 weeks have nothing to say. If you knew anything at all, you wouldn't be here. And they began to hand carry us, using the book and their own experience, to have that same experience. And the first thing they did for me is the first thing I will do for anyone that asks me to sponsor them. They helped me understand precisely what was wrong with me. They described the symptoms of alcoholism in a way that I could put my own life experience to it. I went to the penitentiary at 19 because I'm alcoholic. I had a drink in Long Beach and ended up in Pershing Square drinking. And I was able to put a lot of other things to that. I got comfortable with the idea that I have a physical allergy to alcohol, and they told me it was completely academic because if I never took another drink of alcohol, that had never happened to me again. I never developed this craving for more alcohol. What was really wrong with me was up here in my mind, and that scared me. I had just examined my mind for 33 years, and I had to kill it. And that's what's wrong with me. Good. I was afraid I'd have to spend my whole life on a psychiatrist's couch trying to unravel what I'd already failed to unravel. My sponsor said, don't worry about it. We suggest that you forget everything you think you know about anything, particularly about spiritual matters, because if anything had worked, you wouldn't be here. Let's start over, he said. We can't fix what's wrong with your mind. It's just too badly damaged. There's too many pieces missing. And the key piece that's missing for me is that all the information I've gathered in 25 years, I know that the day will come, because it has come, when it either won't show up or it'll be warped. So I haven't learned a hell of a lot in Alcoholics Anonymous. I've learned a lot from you. What I've learned mostly is that you can't keep me sober. Without you, I am a dead cookie. Please don't misunderstand me. God brought me to you because you are his people, and it is through you that he speaks to me directly. But he never yells at me. You do. But he doesn't. So what you have taught me mostly is to have a quiet mind so I can hear him. And that's all the steps are for me, a way for me to quiet my mind. To be able to pray effectively. I love sponsoring people because they teach me effective prayer. You come to me and you put your life in my hands, literally. And that just scares me to death. I haven't really gotten a good grasp of mine yet. Okay. So I pray, oh God, now what do I do? And you know, I've been shown over the years exactly what to do and say. It's just wonderful. The less I know, the better chance you have of living if you come to me. But I know a couple things. I know that where I am, God is. And I learned that in the penitentiary through more of that gentle stuff. I wondered what these guys had. I came to believe in God because I watched it walking around. 3 men whose lives had been changed. One was a killer who couldn't kill anymore, and I knew that. And one was a stick-up man who couldn't do that anymore. I think the man that I have loved most in my life, he's dead and gone now, was Phil Gutierrez, because he was what I wanted to be. And he didn't talk about it much. He walked around in it. Now, Phil was a badass. He came to us from Guam and was doing time because when he got drunk, he liked to throw things out of windows. And the last time he'd done that, it was people, and it was 3 stories up. This was the kindest, most gentle human being I've ever met in my life. He taught me to touch physically in a penitentiary where it's risky. He taught me about family. And he taught me a basic principle of Alcoholics Anonymous. He said, he really loved his family. He said, I don't do this for my family. I do this for me. Because if I drink again, they have nothing. He taught me how to be a member of a family. And Alcoholics Anonymous is my family. I was as comfortable here tonight as I am in the Denver Thursday night group because I know you're my family. I also know that there's kissing cousins and immediate family. We just came from a conference in Breckenridge, Colorado, where the minor differences in style that we all experience, that's why we have so many groups, just differences in style, was put better than anything I've ever heard. One of our young men said that the fellowship of the Spirit, born of the steps, that gives us our common experience. And I like that because it took all the differences away. Whatever the differences in style, from what I've heard here tonight, we all believe the same thing. It's one alcoholic talking to another, sharing hope and love, and technique and style. Let me share with you how important that was. I watched this family idea save a girl's life, literally. In my little home group, we're pretty close, as you are, and we were all going to Seattle to the International, and this girl came from a very bad home. She was really scared to even be out on the street, just really nervous. But because we were going to Seattle, she went, and we lost her somewhere on Saturday. Or she lost us. Now, my wife and I had been privileged in March to go to Japan to share with them at their 15th anniversary. And we met some of our immediate family there. You spot them, you walk in a room and there they are. And it was fun. Anyway, this girl told me later, she was standing on the streets of Seattle with 30,000, 40,000 of us walking by regularly, absolutely petrified. Because she was alone. Couldn't move. Couldn't talk to anybody. And she said this little Japanese couple walking down the street saw her badge. And on it said, Denver, Colorado. And they walked over to her and said, "Oh, do you know Don-san?" And she was okay. And I've had that experience traveling around this country and other countries. I have yet to be anywhere, if I find Alcoholics Anonymous, but I don't meet somebody from before. I'm completely at home. And I came to you completely lost. Part of my awakening at the third step was my fear. I was absolutely terrified that if I really gave my life over to the care of God, He'd put me at the corner of Colfax and Broadway handing out Watchtower magazines and asking strangers, "Have you been saved, brother?" Not me, boy. That's too humiliating. And I had one of those sponsors who said a sponsor thing. He said, "Oh, let's talk about that." Now, Joe, if your sponsor says that to you, it does not mean let us talk about that. It means if you'll be quiet for a minute, maybe we can wade through this thing and straighten your mind out. I believe that truth without love is cruelty. And I believe that confrontation without some kind of real answer is brutality. So don't do that. But He loved me, and He had a real answer ready for me. And so He went for my spiritual jugular. He said, "Don, do you suppose that the guy that's handing out watchtowers down there at Colfax and Broadway today had breakfast where he wanted to?" And I said, "Probably." And he said, "You didn't." "Do you suppose that guy that's making a fool of himself by asking strangers if they've been saved is wearing clothes that he picked out to do it in?" And I said, "Probably." And he said, "You're not." "Do you suppose when he's all through making a fool of himself that he gets to go home?" And of course I didn't. I was promised when I got here that I could have a new mind. That's the promise. And my sponsor hand carried me into my new mind and helped me to have an experience that changed my life. Anything at all that God has in mind for me is just going to be better than anything at all that I will ever have in mind for me. Period. And I've been living that way for 25 years. Imperfectly, to be sure. But I can tell you the contrast that convinces me that's probably what's happened. When I ran my life and gave it my very best, I ended up in a penitentiary cell talking to cockroaches. My two beloved little boys ended up in a foster home where they were badly treated. My parents wouldn't let me into their home on Christmas Day. My fall partners, the gangsters I ran with, wouldn't come up with $100 to bail me out. That's the best I could do. And I promise you I had done my best. And I quit. I've been letting God kind of direct me. And just on the outside, I have been all over the world. Instead of an 8x10 toilet, the world is mine. The United States, Canada, Guatemala, Puerto Rico. Because of your love and trust, I was sent to Russia for 17 days to talk to their doctors about Alcoholics Anonymous. I've gotten to go to Japan. Hell, look where I am tonight, in a synagogue in Los Angeles. If you'd have had me making out a list of places I'd go, I'd have missed almost every one of the places I've loved the most, including here. I don't make lists anymore. Every time I do, I come up short of what I could have really had. I had a series of spiritual awakenings. And please understand, when I talk about a spiritual awakening for alcoholics, anytime any alcoholic anywhere has anything like a perception of truth, that's a spiritual awakening. Having had that spiritual awakening, my sponsors gave me a big book and the next group of people out of the fish tank and said, now it's your turn, give it back. And then they taught me how to live this way. To practice these principles in all of my affairs, it means I have to have some. I don't want more affairs than I have principles, but I've got to have some affairs. One of the affairs that I have learned to have in my life is a job. I'm a contributing member of my community. I have a monstrous love affair with my wife. She is the cutest little thing. I've been married to her for 16 years, and I just fall in love with her all over again every day. And I almost missed her. I was living at the base of a 14,000-foot mountain with two teenage boys, a black dog, and a white cat, and working behind the walls of a penitentiary 6 hours a day, and the rest of the time my life was mine. And along comes this sane lady. Gary reminded me after I met her, I called him and said, I think I finally found one that doesn't need fixed. And she has taught me, you taught me about love. She has taught me how to love. Because she never tries to fix me. Oh, I love her dearly. She had two little girls that I didn't want to get involved with. I'd just finished raising 7 kids. And botched most of that. And I didn't want to get married, but I'd have missed some of the greatest things in my life had I missed those girls. They were a little rowdy, and I remember early on in our marriage, they got too much for me. So I went upstairs to wait it out, and I just knew that she was going to straighten them out in about 20 minutes and then come get me. And it was about 2 hours later when I realized you're going to starve to death here, bud. She isn't about to fix anything for me. She's a wonder. I think what I want to really share with you is the business of living this out. Making amends has become the most important thing in my life, and that doesn't mean apologizing to people for the wrongs done. That's only a small part of it. I've spent the last 25 years trying to set right the wrongs that I did. And thank God for old Chuck, because he saved my life one time. He told me there's absolutely nothing I can do to ever change what I did to my children, and that was the one that hurt the most. What I can do is create an arena where they can have an opportunity to get well too. And we call that home. I've been living in the same house so long we've outlived an entire dog. I trust my God. It took 22 years to really make amends to my son, my older boy. But it got done. Just recently, I had occasion to look at the fact that I'm mortal. And we don't know how long any of us are going to be here. And one of the benefits of that is that I ask myself, is there any unfinished business here on this planet? And I found some, and it wasn't the negative stuff. I haven't harmed anybody in a long time, serious enough that I couldn't clean it up right away. But there was unfinished business. I have 3 heroes. My dad, the man I'm getting ready to go to work for down in North Carolina, and my next door neighbor. And I pinned my dad down about 4 weeks ago in his little office where he can't move, get by me. And I said, "Pop, I want you to know you're one of my heroes." And I gave him a hug, and he cried. So that's finished now. I've been making amends to my mother for years by showing up on a regular basis, because when I asked her what I have to do to straighten this up, she said, "Honey, all I ever wanted for you was to be happy." So I go by regularly happy. That's all it took. If you ask me today to make a list of what I would like in my life and what I would like my life to be like, except for never having enough money, I have everything I could ever dream of. I am useful. I have enough people that love me to keep me from feeling lonely, and enough people who are pissed at me to keep me from getting careless. I was sitting on my back porch the other day looking at the trees in the house and realizing I have everything I could ever want. My home group is the finest group of people I know. My marriage is good. My relationship with my kids is even working. I told my 20-year-old, "Up yours," the other day, and she said, "Up yours too." And that's love. I haven't decided whether to apologize for that or not. I kind of meant it. On August 16th, I'm going to get in my van and drive away from all of it. Because I have been asked by one of God's messengers to come do something with him in the prison systems in North Carolina. And it's a strange feeling to know that I'm going to walk away from it and won't lose a thing. I won't lose a thing. And my wife's excited about it. I don't know whether she's excited because I'm not going to be around underfoot for a while or because she's got a new place to go now. I won't lose a thing. Where I am, God is. I love Alcoholics Anonymous, and I love you personally and individually. I wish I could thank God for everything that's been given to me, but that whole idea is beyond me. I don't comprehend God. I just feel him. But he gave me you, and I can thank you. So from me, through you, to this loving God I have found, thank you very much.
The group is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and all members of the community are welcome to attend. The single most important aspect of AA recovery, however, is the principle of one alcoholic relating to another alcoholic. Therefore, only alcoholics actually participate in our meetings. If your primary problem is other than alcoholism, we think it would also be helpful to you to contact an anonymous organization which more specifically deals with your addiction. In any case, we hope that what you learn here may be helpful to your recovery and or understanding. Good evening. My name is Norman Levine, and I'm an alcoholic. The format of this meeting is 2 10-minute speakers, a coffee break, and a main speaker. First 10-minute speaker is Brian A.
Good evening. My name is Brian, and I'm an alcoholic. First, I'd like to thank Marilyn for about an hour and a half ago asking me to do this and letting me stew. I want to admit that I'm one of these people that I've practiced a 10-minute pitch in the car, week after week. I really wish I could remember any of that, and for an hour and a half, the curious thing is you're asked to say something about yourself for 10 minutes. For 39 years, I have thought almost exclusively about myself. And I don't know what to say. It's an honor and a privilege is what it is to be here and to talk to so many friends. I will tell you what happened and what it's like, and what happened to me and what it's like today. I was born and raised in Canada, little of both, and I grew up in the Canadian Air Force, and we moved around a lot when I was young, about every 6 months, and that doesn't make me unusual. It's a common pattern, it seems, among alcoholics. I don't think it makes us alcoholics, but I've heard it before, getting up and moving around a lot, and I did a lot of that. And I was the youngest child. I had 3 older sisters. We came from a white bread Protestant family. We didn't talk about anything. We didn't touch each other. And my mother used to have nervous breakdowns the way some people, go on vacations, and she would go away for a year or 2 at a time, and it was a tense household to grow up in, and I was glad to leave it, and I left it as soon as I could. In 11th grade, I took off and struck out on my own, and somewhere in 11th grade, I also discovered marijuana, and that's the first time I took a drug or a drink was then, and I remember I smoked a lot of dope, and I got real high, and I left that where I was at, and I remember hearing a car start up somewhere a long way away, maybe 3-4 blocks away. But it had that certain oral hallucination that you get, as a and I loved it. I thought this was great, and I proceeded to stay stoned and drunk for the next 15 years. And I quickly, marijuana did lead to hard drugs for me, and as surely as mother's milk does, but as quickly as I could too. And I don't remember the first time I got drunk because I was stoned and I missed it, and that's the truth. And I did a lot of silly things. I do know that I ended up, I was living down here at the time, and I'm a crash and burn person. I like to take something as far as I can until nobody wants me, and then I go somewhere else and I do that. And I have a habit of going between Toronto, Canada, and Los Angeles, and I did that for many years. And I discovered drinking really in Canada, because in Canada they like to drink, and they drink beer. They drink real beer in Canada, and it's strong stuff, and that's what they do. They don't even, they sell 6-packs. Nobody buys them. Maybe visiting Americans buy 6-packs. But what you buy if you live in Canada is a 24 beer. You put a case up on your shoulder. You put 2 cases on your shoulder on Saturday night because the beer store is closed on Sunday. And I learned to drink there, and I was a bit of a speed freak, not a real speed freak. Real speed freaks die or find Jesus. I was a kind of a semi speed freak, and I like the amphetamines because they help me drink more. That's the best reason to do amphetamines, is they just help me drink more. And I like drugs, and it's not a drug story, but certain drugs maybe do certain things, and they make me feel certain ways. I like alcohol best because alcohol makes me not care, and that's simply the best feeling that I can have. Because I always care. I always care what you think. And the only time I don't care what you think is when I'm drinking, and there's just no greater freedom. There's just no greater freedom for me. I've always been terribly self-conscious, which I've learned is self-centered, but I still like to think of it as self-conscious. I would think of myself in the third person when I was a teenager, and I was terribly affected in all manners of dress and whatnot. But alcohol just worked for me, and it worked great, and it allowed me to talk to women, and I just wanted to talk to women, and so much so that I got married when I was 19, and I married an Irish girl. I don't know why I told the story, but I started it. So I married an Irish girl in Canada, and I brought her to the United States, and I watched her drink. I'd never seen her drink before we got married, and she was an alcoholic from the first sip. I was drunk, but she was an alcoholic. And 6 months into that marriage, I called up her father, and I said, "Look, I'm sending her home like a bad package, And he said to me, he said, "What's the matter, lad?" And I said, "It's just not working." He says, "Have you tried beating her?" And I didn't say it. He did, and I said, "No, because I don't do that. I have not beaten her." And he says, "Then you haven't really tried, have you, lad?" And I did not take his advice. I did not beat him. But I've been through a lot of jobs. I've been through like 40 different careers, and I'm 39 years old, and most of them were in my 20s. And what I did is I just found alcohol worked for me not only at night, but it worked during the afternoon, and it worked in the morning. It worked all the time, and I'm one of these people that just got lucky. I could present enough of being a bright young man that I could get a start. I could always get a start somewhere, and I could clean up, and I could talk good for a few minutes, and I could get a job, and maybe get a girlfriend for a while. I could hold something together for a short amount of time. At any rate, I ended up getting married and having a child. And what happened for me is my last year drinking, I was 30 years old, and I was married, and I had a 2-year-old son, and I'd been asked to curtail my drinking 2 days out of the week, and I just couldn't do that. The days I was not supposed to drink, what I would do is I would drink at lunch. I had a job where I could drink at lunch. I would drink at lunch. I would get home. I would after work. I would stop. I would drink a number of beers at the Save-On, and put the empties outside the car, and I'd smoke a lot of cigarettes, and I'd chew up a lot of gum, to get past that kiss at the door. But our marriage was crappy, and we weren't kissing at the door, so I didn't even have to pass that test. And then these are the nights I'm not supposed to be drinking. 2 nights a week I told her I wasn't going to drink, just because I'm not an alcoholic. And those nights we always ran out of something. Milk, bacon, deodorant, something. And I would have to go down to the Hughes, and of course in the back of the car is a bottle, and I would drink from that bottle. And then I could outwait my wife. She fell asleep at about 11 o'clock, and then I'd drink again. So those were the nights I wasn't drinking. And the nights I was drinking were worse. And what came as the tip-off for me is my best friend in Canada died. My mother called me and said, "Gary died." And 2 things ran through my head. And one is, oh my God, my best friend has died. And the other thing was, I can drink tonight without impunity. But that wasn't the order that came in. And at any rate, I turned myself in. My marriage was going to seed, and I went to Alcoholics Anonymous. And for the first 4 years in Alcoholics Anonymous, I went in the valley, and I went twice a week, whether I needed it or not. I took the steps. I had a sponsor that gave me advice, and I took that advice as I saw fit. And at the end of 4 years, I was sober and absolutely insane. And I met my sponsor, Bob Zetz, and through my wife's sponsor. And he sat down and he talked to me, and he said, "What do you want?" And I told him I wanted a better marriage and I wanted to be happy. And he told me what he did. And he brought me here and he said, "This is what you're going to do," which is what I do. You're going to go to these meetings and you're going to play ball in the yard. I'll tell you something. I've been sober 8.5 years. Not a lot in my life has changed. I have a kind of the same type of house. I have the same wife, same kids, same job. And but everything is different. Everything is different. Today, I love that wife. Today, I love my children. Today, I like my work. I'm proud of what I do. Today I feel good about the person that I am. Today, I'm not looking, to get what I want. I'm looking to want what I have. And I do want what I have. And I've always had that. God's always given it to me. If you're new here tonight, it took 8.5 years just to have a change of attitude. But that's all. That's all that I've needed to do to make my life happy. And it's thanks to Alcoholics Anonymous and you. Thank you very much.
Second 10-minute speaker is Debbie H.
Hi, everybody. I'm Debbie Harris, and I'm an alcoholic. And I'd like to thank Marilyn for asking me to participate in the meeting tonight. It's always a privilege to be asked to do anything here. But my favorite job is pouring coffee, and I love to do that. But I like to tell you 3 things about myself that, because of these 3 things, my life is comfortable most of the time. And that is a sobriety date. My sobriety date is February the 8th, 1976, which means I've been sober a little over 17 years. Now, that's not my first sobriety date. I don't tell you that to impress you because there's a lot of people here sober far longer than I. But it lets you know that I have one. And I believe that if you are new here in Alcoholics Anonymous and don't have a sobriety date, I encourage you to get one. Alcoholics Anonymous will make a lot more sense when you're sober. And I consider sobriety the absence of everything because the last thing I ever took was I smoked one lousy joint. And so this is the basis of my time. This is where it all begins, because if I'm not physically sober, the rest of it really won't make any sense, and there'll be no penalties to pay for not taking the steps of this program, which is what changes my life. The second and third thing are equally important to me. One is a home group. I believe very strongly in a home group. I am a member of the Bellflower Big Book Group, and I'm a regular attender at this meeting. Come on. And I believe in a home group. Prior to that, my home group was the Skyline Group in Atlanta, Georgia, and my original home group was the 12 and 12 group in Minneapolis. And it's important to me to be a part of a home group. And I hope that you, if you don't have a home group, either make this one or get one very soon, and jump in the middle of it, because it makes all the difference when we feel a part of. I've spent enough time being on the outside looking in, and it's not where I want to be today. And the other thing is a sponsor. And my sponsor, I have the best sponsor for me there is. Millie G is my sponsor, and I've had 3 sponsors in my sobriety because I've lived in 3 different states. And for me, I prefer and need local sponsorship. So these 3 things all make it happen for me: a sobriety date, a home group, and a sponsor. And if you are sitting in this meeting restless, irritable, and discontent and don't have one or all 3 of those things, I really encourage you to get them as soon as you can, because I'll guarantee you this: your life will change. I had my first drink when I was 12 years old on a Friday night, and it would change my life as I had never known possible that I would ever feel that way. Now, I did not come from alcoholic parents. There aren't any alcoholics in my family. I took my first drink to be a part of this group of people that I was interested in, because they drank and smoked cigarettes and skipped school, and those were the people I were attracted to. And they invited me to this party, and I had heard them talk about drinking, and I decided that since this is like my debut, I've got one shot at this deal, and I'm going to get drunk. Now, I don't know how you do it, but I guess you drink a lot to get there. Now, I had never seen anybody drunk before. I was not raised up in an environment to run away from. I was an only child. I was raised up in the Midwest. And I went to Catholic school, and I went to Catholic church, and my parents were kind and loving, and I didn't want for anything. the way they were social drinkers. I've never seen them abusively drink. They were the kind of people who would have one drink all night long, and that was very natural to them. And yet for me, what would be just as natural would be as I would have a fresh bottle all night long. And so we drank so differently, and what was just regular to them, this way of life would be regular to me in such a short period of time. And I went to that party, and my life changed in an instant, it felt like. I took that first drink, and I didn't quite know what to expect, but it went down, and it was burning on the way down, and I thought, that's a good sign. That must mean it's working. And I think what makes me an alcoholic is really what happened when I took the second drink. Because I had arrived at that party very nervous and scared and just, oh my God, he's here, and oh, she's here, and I can't talk to anybody, and I hope I'll be accepted by these people. But I'll tell you, when I took that second drink, it all changed. Because it's sort of like you sort of throw your shoulders back, put your head up, and you think, aren't they glad I'm here, you know? It's just a complete change in an instant. And when I was new in sobriety, I heard Clancy explain in words what that was. I wouldn't have known it then, but I knew it when he said it. It instantly changed my perception. And that is what happened to me. And I would have my first drunk that night. I would have my first blackout. I would pass out for the first time. I would have my first case of the dry heaves. And all of that would be sort of a regular deal. But because it was my first experience and only experience, I assumed everybody had this feeling I had and had the experiences I had. So I didn't think anything unusual. My drinking progressed as rapidly as I could allow it to progress. A year later, I too was introduced to the wonderful world of drugs, which allowed me to stay conscious longer before the inevitable blackout. Because the way that I drink is I drink whiskey out of a bottle with a beer chaser. And I found that if I took things that kept me awake, like speed and acid, that I could drink longer, and that was the whole point. In the last year and a half, for me, my type of daily diet was a bottle of whiskey and a hit or two of acid. And I didn't think anything odd about that at all. At 17, I was committed to a hospital for alcoholism and drug addiction, and would be there for 7 weeks. And while there, I was educated in alcoholism and would be taken to outside meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, but I wasn't really one of them. And I found all the differences. They said that they had lost their family because of drinking. And I looked at that as, I wanted to lose my family. You know, that was good. I wanted to get rid of them. They talked about totaling out cars. And I had never totaled out a car, not officially. I had a little drunk car that arrived away. You know, they start off square and they kind of get rounded out with the drunk bumps. But they talked about 502s and drunk driving charges. And I didn't have any of those either because I worked for the city judge and I knew all the police on the force. They talked about jails and institutions and prisons, and I mean, there's really a lot of criminals here, you know, and I looked at that as, hey, I've only been in jail 3 times, and every time it was a misunderstanding, you know, and they talked about getting fired from jobs, and I had to remember that I used to usually quit in a blackout, and I'd go to work the next day. I didn't know I had quit, you know, and these were the kinds of things they talked about, but there were a couple things that I couldn't rationalize away, and that was they talked about all those broken promises, and I'd had more than I ever wanted to remember of those, and they talked about all trying to scrub away that smell. And that probably was the most frightening thing I heard, because I really identified with that, and that was to me one of those secrets. And I was sent to an all-women's halfway house, which I would be there for 9 months, but the first 7 months I did what I had to do to get by, which was not drink or take drugs and go to one Alcoholics Anonymous meeting a month. And I went whether I had to go, needed to go or not. And my sobriety would be nil, of course, because I would get drunk again and I would get drunk one more time. But finally it all came crashing down for me. And my sobriety, when I got sober, my first 4 years, I was very active in Alcoholics Anonymous. And when I was just short of 4 years, I moved to Atlanta, and I started making my own decisions again. Even though I had a sponsor, I started deciding I'd go to 2 to 3 meetings a week, which, of course, when you're making the decision, becomes 2. And I wasn't getting better. And at 6 years of sobriety, it was the craziest and most difficult and painful year of my life because of several obsessions happening in my life. And I'll tell you, obsessions are very deadly. I'm very, very grateful and thankful to be sober today. And at almost 7 years of sobriety, it all one more time came crashing down. And I took a look at the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous with my sponsor. And one more time, I got a little complacent after a period of time. And at 8.5 years sober, I'm a little restless, irritable, and discontent, a little bored with all the stuff happening. And I realized in my home group meeting, I was told that trying to live today on last year's program. And so for allowing me to learn how to live in today and to participate in life on a daily basis, this is where it's at. And that is what my job is. And so for allowing me to participate in this meeting and make a contribution to my sobriety, I thank you.
At this meeting, and by a birthday we mean 365 days of continuous sobriety, and that we take to be freedom from alcohol or any chemicals that we'd use to alter our consciousness. Now, if you'd like to take a birthday cake at this meeting, please see the secretary before the meeting. And tonight we have 10 birthdays. Our first birthday is for 1 year, and that's for Gay S.
Hi, my name is Gay Spear, and I'm an alcoholic. I want to thank Christine, my sponsor, for the last 6 months of sponsorship and for introducing me to the Pacific Group. I want to thank my good friends, Maria and Georgia, for all their unconditional love and support. They've been great. Clancy and Charlotte for the yard. Have a great time there. All the women in Pacific Group softball team, and all of you, and my God, thanks.
Happy birthday, Gay. And now a 2-year birthday for Steve N.
My name is Steve, and I'm an alcoholic. I'd like to thank Paul for his sponsorship and the cake. I'd like to thank God for helping me get this cake in particular that has 2 candles on it instead of another one with 1. And I'd like to thank all of you, particularly Clancy. Thanks.
Happy birthday, Steve. And now a 5-year birthday for Heather M.
Hi, my name's Heather Morse. I'm an alcoholic. I want to thank Sharon so much for this year of sponsorship. This is the 5th cake that she's given me, and I'm so grateful she's in my life. I want to thank Claudia R. for my first year of sponsorship. I want to thank my sister Eileen for allowing me to be her kid sister again, and her husband David for being my Eskimo to Alcoholics Anonymous and to this program. I want to thank Clancy for just being Clancy, and Clancy and Charlotte for the yard, my AA sisters, the class of '88, and all of you.
Happy birthday, Heather. And now an 8-year birthday for Kathy K.
Hi, my name's Kathy, and I'm an alcoholic. Hi, I want to thank Rennie for her love and guidance over the past 8 years, Clancy for our group, Diane for calling me sponsor, Pacific Group, Women's Softball Team, Class of '85, and all of you.
Happy birthday, Kathy. And now a 9-year birthday for Wayne B.
I'm Wayne, an alcoholic. First of all, I'd like to thank the Class of '84. I'd like to thank God, Clancy, and I would especially like to thank my sponsor, Tom, for the unconditional love. And through him, tonight, for the newcomer, I'd like to share 3 things that I discovered tonight. It was number 1, I was getting ready, and I realized I don't have the car, I don't have the new house, and I don't have the significant other, but I have sobriety, and that is the most important thing in my life. The second thing is, I found out through Tom's unconditional love that I'm beginning to discover a God that loves me no matter what. And the third thing is, whenever I was sitting at dinner with him tonight, and one of the most wonderful feelings I've ever experienced was I felt complete. And that I can be very thankful and grateful to you all.
Happy birthday, Wayne. And now a 12-year birthday for Jim Kay.
I'm Jim Knight, and I'm an alcoholic. And I want to thank you all for being here and sharing my birthday with me. I want to thank my God for getting me sober and Alcoholics Anonymous for keeping me sober. I want to thank my fellow Orange County contingent that's here with me tonight to help me celebrate. You know, I've made friends up here, and I am grateful for that, and I appreciate that. I want to thank Clancy for giving me another K. I want to thank him for the structure of this group, and I want to thank him for all that he does for Alcoholics Anonymous. I want to thank the Pacific Group for all that they do. And I want to thank each and every person that's here tonight for the love that they've shown me. Thank you.
Happy birthday, Jim. And now a 15-year birthday, for Glenn R.
Hi, everybody. I'm Glenn Richards, and I'm an alcoholic. And I feel really grateful tonight because I've had 15 years of first-class living, and I want to thank Joe for all his help in making that possible. I want to thank him for his sponsorship and for his friendship and for his caring for my well-being. I want to thank Clancy for all he does for this group and his dedication to Alcoholics Anonymous. I want to thank my God for getting me to this group and being able and help me to stay here. And I'd like to thank my wife, Norma, for all her love and support this year. I'd like to thank all my friends from the Thursday Night Al-Anon group for all their help. And I'd like to thank Class of 78, Pacific Group, and all of you.
Happy birthday, Glenn. And now a 16-year birthday for Don S.
I'm Don Schott. I'm an alcoholic. And I am very grateful to my God for leading me here and putting me in the hands of Clancy, who's taken very good care of me these 17 years, and 16 of them sober. Some things never change. I think the things that I learned in the Pacific Group the first year are just as important now as they were then for me, and it's just as important that I do them. Hopefully they're sinking in a little bit better. But some things do change, because when I got sober, people who had 16 years knew something.
Happy birthday, Don. And now a 24-year birthday for Mary Ann Kay.
Thank you. I'm Mary Ann, and I'm an alcoholic. And I tried very hard not to limp. I still like to look good. I would like to acknowledge the help that I received from Maish H., Alice C., and Betty H. These three women functioned at one time or another as my sponsor, and I appreciate the work and the kindness that they showed me. I want to thank my beloved Clancy for taking care of me for the last most of the last 24 years, for being an influence in my life, for encouraging me to become, he told me one time regarding learning to drive a car, which was absolutely out of the question for me. He said, you'll feel more like a human being if you do more of the things that human beings do. And I knew that he knew that terrible secret that I had, that I wasn't, I looked sort of like a human being, but that I wasn't. There was something just missing. And it seemed to me by him saying something like that to me, that meant that there was a possibility that I perhaps could get out of this imprisonment, the bondage of self. And he has encouraged me and shown me a way, and I'm very, very grateful for that. I believe that had I not got to the Pacific Group, I would probably be sober today. But I believe getting involved in this group and having Clancy for a sponsor has made me the kind of person I am today. And as was mentioned here by other people tonight, I am glad that I am who I am. I'm very grateful for the life that I lead today. I want to again thank Clancy, the Pacific Group. I want to thank the women that I sponsor now in the women that I have sponsored over the years, what a wonderful thing it is to have people give me an opportunity to share this back. And I want to thank you for having allowed me to be secretary of this meeting in 1985 and 86. And thank you all very much.
Happy birthday, Marianne. And as most of you know, Marianne is a former secretary of this group. We have another birthday for 28 years for Don S.
Hi, everybody. My name is Don Siebert, and I'm an alcoholic. And this is a very special cake for me because I've been away from this group for 8.5 years living in Florida, and it's just great to be back, and I've been looking forward to this. I want to thank, first of all, a God that I know I didn't understand, probably didn't believe in, for answering whatever prayer I might have mumbled for help some 28 years ago, for getting me here and for keeping me here much of the time in spite of myself. I want to thank Clancy for giving me that cake and for being my sponsor for the second time around, and also for always being there whenever I needed him, for whatever it took, for as long as it took. And for inspiring me to do the things that I know I have to do, but probably wouldn't do on my own, and that's very important to me. I want to thank my previous sponsor, Chuck C., for being my spiritual mentor, for helping me find a God that I could understand that I couldn't understand before him. I want to thank Al-Anon in a special way. I want to thank particularly Charlotte Imislund and Elsa Chamberlain for giving me the type of Al-Anon help and understanding that I needed while I watched some of the people that were very close to me suffer the agony that they had to suffer while they were trying to reach their bottoms. I want to thank my sons, Don and Tom, who some of you know, who gave me the privilege of introducing them to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm happy to say that they're both sober members of this fellowship tonight, one with 7 years and the other with 3. I want to thank the people that I've had the privilege of sponsoring for keeping me on my toes and making me stay at least one step ahead of them, and for keeping me doing the things that I asked them to do. I want to thank the Pacific Group for giving me the discipline and the commitment to the responsibility to commitment that I lacked so badly when I got here with 8.5 years of sobriety. And I want to thank a man that made a 12-step call on me in 1957 when I called the central office in Chicago. And I had called AA for the wrong reason and I wasn't ready. But that man planted the seed for me and he ruined my drinking forever. And I also want to thank, last but not least, the class of 1965, whoever you are.
Happy birthday, Don. That's all the birthdays we have right here in this room. However, we have 2 out-of-town birthdays. A birthday for Brian R., who is 3 years, and he was our speaker a few weeks ago. He's from Bristol, England. We also have a 9-year birthday. That is Austin C. from Cape Town, South Africa. In all, we have 12 birthdays, and the average year per birthday is 12 years this time. Pretty amazing. You're right. I stand corrected. 10 years per birthday. Not as good as we thought. I'll get it right someday. We do have a birthday candle custom. And for the bargain price of $1, you can purchase every candle on your birthday cake. To do that, go immediately after the meeting to the back of the room and see our treasurer and buy all the candles on your cake. It goes to a good cause. That is the World Services AA in New York. And last year we sent $5,959. There is